Cool. Let's crack on. So good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar titled The Global Influencer Effect, How Influencer Marketing and Localization Can Help Grow B2B Brands in a People and Purpose First Economy. My name is James and I'll be your host for today. I'm also delighted to be joined by two brilliant guest speakers. But before we kick off and do some introductions, I'll just go through some housekeeping pointers for everyone. So we're going to have time for Q&A at the end of the webinar. So if you have any questions that come up throughout, please pop them in the Q&A or in the chat, and we will get to those at the end. We'll also be sharing, following this webinar, a recording of the webinar. So it will live on our website in the next couple of weeks for you to rewatch and share with any colleagues or friends as well. So let's introduce today's topic and our special guests. To quickly introduce myself, my name is James, and I'm head of commercial at Comtech Translations. Comtech are a UK-based language localization company. We've been in the business for over 40 years, and our experience is primarily based on supporting brands communicate with their audiences internationally. We do that in over 250 languages, which is quite a few, and we help them to successfully navigate the challenges of language and culture in their work and growing their brands. Working in the localization industry, we have the privilege of working with a lot of different agencies and brands and supporting them with localization of every content imaginable and every channel imaginable. Today, we're excited to be shining the spotlight on the growing phenomenon of influencer marketing. Now, we all use channels like TikTok, Instagram in our daily lives, and B2C brands have long been investing in this lucrative marketing channel to promote their brands. In recent years, however, we have been seeing a rise in B2B brands exploring the power of influencer marketing, which leads us very nicely to the topic of our webinar today. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our very special guests, Catherine Fruscia and Jojo Walsh from influencer marketing agency Gleam Solutions. Catherine and Jojo, over to you. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Thanks, James. Thanks for that welcome. So I'm Catherine Fruscia. I head up growth for Gleam. For anyone not familiar, Gleam was actually founded way back in 2010. We're actually one of the first agencies to focus on social first content creators and launch the careers of some of the most recognizable digital faces today, including people like Zoe Sugg, Tanya Burr and Jim Chapman. We launched Gleam Solutions in 2017 and became part of the Dentsu network. And our agency offering combines this heritage that we have in talent management with unique audience insights and strategy to provide clients with full service influencer marketing campaigns. And I'll hand you over to Jojo to introduce herself.
Thanks, Catherine. Hi, guys. Yeah, I'm Jojo, and I'm a senior account director on the client management side at Gleam Solutions, and I've been at the company for nearly 5 years, and I work with some of our key global accounts on their influencer marketing strategies.
Brilliant. Thank you both for excellent introductions. We've been working together for probably a couple of years now, and we've been working with Dentsu for even longer, probably coming up to 10 years now. So it's really nice to be able to do this webinar together. And for those of you who aren't aware, we did a webinar a few months ago on B2C influencer marketing. So check that out on our website as well if you'd like any insights into that. So today I'm really excited to be speaking with you both about influencer marketing on a global scale and the growing power of this for B2B brands, and also shedding some light on how translation and localization plays a part in this success. So my first question for you both, looking to our title, The Global Influencer Effect, can you tell our audience about your experience in influencer marketing and working with content creators?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Gleam, we activate campaigns all over the world with a whole host of clients across different advertising categories, from fashion and beauty all the way through to FMC and finance. And now actually we're getting a lot more interest in B2B campaigns. But to answer your question, I think the main change has been that influencer has moved away from brands simply gifting products to a serious, credible and measurable media channel that helps build brand reputation and also generates true business outcomes. But I think what's been interesting is the quality of content has vastly improved. Influencers are no longer treated as billboards. They've become really talented content creators that are producing, amazing, authentic, really quality content that can engage audiences and drive real business outcomes. And I think, going back to your question, when we're looking at influencer marketing across the globe, it's quite clear that markets are maturing at quite different levels. But I think it's really fair to say that it has now become an important and integral part of most global marketing strategies. So actually that kind of when we're talking about global, I've got a question back for you, James. A lot of the work that we do is in countries that are non-native English speakers. So what success have you had? What success have you seen for brands that actually embrace language capabilities, such as international influencers, versus those that don't? So yeah, if you can answer this one, James.
Absolutely, that is a great question. I think it's so important to look at why marketing in different languages is so important, and investing in translation and localization to support that, first of all. There's a really interesting stat I read a few weeks ago that mentioned that 55% of the content on the web, on the internet, is in English. That's quite a big number, but when you look at the percentage of people who actually speak English natively in the world, it's less than 5%. So there's a whole 95% of the entire global population who aren't being communicated to in their own language. And that means a lot when it comes to accessibility and really promoting your brand. There's a lot of opportunity though for brands to really tap into that, grow your revenue streams, and really expand internationally by communicating in different languages and really focusing on your global audience and making sure your sales and marketing strategy and all your content is really tailored and localized and appropriate for this audience. It's also more pressing when we look at consumer behavior globally as well. 76% of online shoppers prefer to buy products in their own language if the information is given in their own language. So by not localizing, brands aren't meeting customers' needs and potentially losing out on 76% of potential sales there. It's something in the localization industry we've been working a lot on as well to really help brands measure the success of investing in localization and the power that gives brands. Over the past 5 years, the Association of Translation Companies, which I'm a member of, have undertaken a study with in collaboration with us University Business School, and the PhD study looked at commercial success of brands who were embracing language capabilities versus those that don't. Following a study of I think around 150 to 200 SMEs based in the UK, it was discovered that businesses who invest in languages, whether that was multilingual staff, internal translation resource, external, working with a partner like ourselves, or investing in language training for their staff, they were 30% more successful commercially than brands that only exported or communicated in English. And that's a real huge business statistic there that shows the power of investing in language. I think another one is when you're looking at localizing your website for the markets, and we do a lot of website localization. We've seen brands increase their traffic by 30% by providing these websites in the languages. And I think there's a general stat that if you translate your website, your sales overall go up by 66% because you're targeting new markets. So I think there's a real clear link there that localization and speaking to a global consumer base in their language really, really helps brands grow.
Those stats are brilliant. Yeah, some really great stats that we can use. With this importance of localization, it'd be good now for us to kind of talk about vetting and how we vet in another language and how you'd advise brands to safeguard their reputation. So I guess that's one Jojo can cover, and also it'd be great to get your input there, James.
Yeah, sure. So for us at Gleam, vetting is a huge part of our day-to-day. Obviously, when we're recommending partnering with social profiles to our clients, we need to ensure that we've done our due diligence and that profile represents the brand's values. Also, most of our clients are global brands, so they are often running the same campaigns across different markets. And when those campaigns are in the UK, typically we have that knowledge around the different creators' reputation within the market. But when it's in another market, it might not be as apparent to us. So a bit more digging has to be done there to look into them. But I think it's crucial that we still employ the same vetting to profiles across different markets so that we are safeguarding our brand's reputation when we're expanding those campaigns. And that's when we recommend working with translation agencies such as Comtech Translations to help bridge that gap between the different markets. And I think together we've built a really after kind of 2 years of working with each other, we built a really robust criteria for this and a really rigorous almost system of flagging system that we've got. And that includes everything from PR background checks, content vetting, briefing calls, competitor checks. But it's obviously really specific to each brand and campaign that we're working on. And then also I'd say we have the added advantage of being a global part of the global Dentsu network. So we also have local teams on the ground that can give further advice on any cultural nuances that we might need to be aware of there too.
Brilliant. That's really cool. I think I would certainly agree with you. And I think from a translation perspective, communication and collaboration are key to safeguarding that brand's reputation. I think all the things we've put in place, for example, the briefing calls, asking for information and sharing, style and tone guidelines, understanding the profile of your brands, the work you're working for, and also the brands that what they're not looking for is also really useful. I think you touched on it as well, having a briefing call. We've certainly found that when working together on new client campaigns, having a briefing call together with yourselves, Comtech, and our linguists as well, who are doing the vetting work, that really helps them to understand the branding objectives, so they can help us find and vet the right linguists for the influencers for the job.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree that those briefing calls are definitely crucial, especially on the trickier briefs. And James, another question for you. How can we ensure the content is culturally sensitive and appropriate during that vetting process?
Oh, a great question again. I think at Comtech, I think we pride ourselves on high quality, and that feeds through for all the work we do. And I think when it comes to vetting, we use the same principles that we do in translation and localization work, where we are making sure we are checking again. So like we would for any translation project, for our vetting work with Gleam, we build up a team of specialists for each individual brief and each individual client brief. And we vet them and select these linguists for relevant criteria. So first of all, they must be a native speaker of the language required, quite an important one there. They must also be based in market. So they're always immersed in their target culture, and this ensures that linguist translator is also a consumer themselves based in that market. So we've got that connection there. That's really important for any kind of marketing content, to make sure the linguist is based in the country where the marketing is being shared and published. They also need to be familiar with marketing, influencer marketing, as well as the industry of the client who we're vetting influencers for. And they must be social media users themselves. So whether that's Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, YouTube, the various channels that content creators use for promotion. And I think Joe just touched on it already. We do put together a really comprehensive vetting report that's tailored for each individual client brief. So we can check for and vet for all the relevant cultural and commercial aspects to ensure we're giving the best recommendations, and our linguists are helping Gleam and their clients find the most suitable talent to engage with. Cool. So my turn to ask a question now, if that's okay. And this is one for Jojo. So I think we've touched already about kind of the results and impact of localization, but I'd really like to understand a bit more about how this works with influencer marketing. So when done right, what kind of results have you seen for your clients, and how do you measure the ROI from investing in influencer marketing?
Yeah, so, well, to answer the first bit of your question, in terms of what results our clients have seen, global influencer campaigns can deliver against so many different KPIs. So we can sell products, we can shift brand perception, we can drive consideration, create viral buzz around new products, and also just build awareness for campaign messagings. When we plan for influencer marketing campaigns, our strategy always will be around trying to get a combination of organic social content, but then also amplify that organic content with paid ads through the talent's accounts. So we're able to kind of use that content and scale it. And this then, once we're using those paid ads, it allows us to measure things much more granularly. And with all our clients, we'll obviously sit down at the beginning of a campaign and we'll make sure we have the right measurement and reporting frameworks in place that are suited to that specific campaign. To give an example, for kind of our sales-driven clients, we can measure the return of ad spend from pixels placed on their sites. But then we can also look at brand uplift studies and bespoke research pieces. And they can measure how well the influencer content performs against other brand health indicators as well. But we also see at the moment our clients finding a lot of value in the measurement of social listening and audience sentiment, because it obviously allows them to see exactly what people are saying about the brand, and also kind of the different trends and themes that are being said about them. So that's another great tool that's kind of we're seeing a lot more value in at the moment.
Brilliant. That all sounds great. And I think it's really fascinating for our audience to kind of hear more about what all the work that goes into influencer marketing and content creation, and how we are, making sure we're working with the right people and measuring results for brands. So I think what I want to do now is ask you a question around B2B. So we work with, at Content, we work with a lot of B2B brands as well as B2C. But we're really, I think today I'd really like to kind of understand, get some advice from you. What would your advice be for B2B brands who have never looked at social media influencing as a marketing channel before, and why they should have a go and explore this?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great question, as I think some marketeers are still viewing influencer marketing just as a B2C channel. However, it's really not the case.
Yeah.
I think influencer marketing is proven to help accomplish pretty much any B2B marketing goal, whether that's looking at brand awareness or to generating leads. And I think what's been really interesting and what we've seen is the B2B landscape has actually really changed in the last few years. And according to a recent report by Merkel and Gartner, 80% of B2B sales will actually be digital by 2025. And we've also seen that large companies that previously would have made decisions based on, logical and rational indicators are now making more emotional decisions. So I think when we look at this in the context, it's actually created a number of B2B decision makers that look and act differently from before. I think obviously this is great news for influencer marketing, as ultimately this channel is based on human to human recommendations. And we all kind of know that influencers are ideally placed to humanize B2B brands and give businesses a personality. And in addition to this, it's well documented that people, don't trust brands. So using credible influencer voices does allow businesses, whether they're B2B or B2C, to convey really important messages about their business offering, and allows them to build trust. In a recent example, actually, we've been working with MasterCard, and it's all around raising awareness of their Strive UK programme. And through the content that we've created, we've been able to show how MasterCard supports and cares about small business owners. So in this sense, the content is much more around creating an emotional need state, so more purpose-driven, solving problems rather than simply selling products. Which obviously we can also do. I think there's some more obvious benefits of being able to help community with its reputation, confidence. You mentioned TikTok, and obviously that's a great way for businesses to target niche audiences, but ultimately the channel can drive revenue for businesses. And I think, looking at the interest, it's never been a better time for B2B brands to kind of dip their toe in and really kind of use influencer marketing and start doing some test and learn in the space.
I think that's such an important point, and I completely agree with the trends you've mentioned. I think now is the time to experiment with and try new things with marketing and sales and brand growth. As I've mentioned already, we work with lots of B2B brands, and we've certainly noticed that these brands are focusing on becoming more human oriented in their marketing and sales content that we translate for them. We've seen a huge rise over the past couple of years, I would say, in thought leadership pieces and video content as well, social media content. We're really seeing lots of different types of content coming through that brands need to localize. And this type of content as well does require a more bespoke localization approach as opposed to a kind of traditional word for word translation. I think since the pandemic, we've really seen the shift, right, where B2B brands, also B2C, but B2B brands in particular, are placing greater emphasis on translated content being culturally appropriate for audiences as well. So not just accurate, but really localized, speaking to the consumer directly in the markets. And we've done a lot more work with these brands in terms of transcreation, greater levels of localization than ever before, really going that next extra step and really speaking to the consumer and creating high impact content in a language. I think to add to that as well, as some of our audience may be aware, Comtech are a B Corp. And in fact, we are the first UK translation company to be a B Corp, which is really, really exciting. And one of only, I think, about 20 in the world, which is really, really cool. But I think being part of this community, we've also seen the power of shifting focus from people and profit to also purpose as well, and really underpinning that in your agency and all the work you do, all the marketing you do. We've seen our marketing change, and we've kind of been following these trends as well. We've done much more thought leadership, much more personal stuff, like this webinar today, human to content. And I think this shift in a people first approach is better for your brand in coming humanization. I think the other thing to say as well is it's interesting time in our industry. We're also seeing that there's, despite the kind of growth of humanization with, digital, as you said, becoming, marketing going to be 85% digital by 2025. We are seeing AI solutions pop up, which brands are also embracing. So it's a very interesting time to work in the localization industry at the moment.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think you've just really hit upon a really interesting point with AI. And it's a subject that Jojo and I are finding, it's very hotly debated at the moment. So talking of AI, what role do you think, what role do you anticipate AI will play in international marketing and localization?
Really good question. I think from our perspective, it's there. I think for some brands, or a lot of brands in some cases who I've spoken to in our industry and others, AI is definitely a bit of an elephant in the room, and for some it is causing fear. I think personally, and from a content perspective, I think AI is here to stay, but I think it's a very early stage of development, and we've got to look at it as working with it, not against it. When it comes to translation localization, AI models such as ChatGPT, DeepL, they do have a place. And with a rise in digital channels, there's going to be, of course, a massive temptation to use AI to translate or generate content, put everything through AI. But from years of experience, what I would say is these tools enhance the process and the work of humans. They don't replace us outright. Again, translation perspective, we're one of the oldest professions in the world, dating back over 3,000 years. And we've certainly evolved since those days, but I don't think, and we'll continue to do so, but I don't think we're going extinct anytime soon. I would personally consider using AI in the localization process as a productivity tool. There's some excellent workflow automation solutions you can do behind the scenes to support businesses communicate faster and get their products to market faster. And also we've seen some use of AI in the creative ideation process when it comes to transcreation to support the transcreation process and generate some ideas. But if you're looking to grow your business in a new market, that's by creating content that's going to really generate emotional impact with humans, you've got to lead with humans first and ensure they're the focus, with the AI and the tech as the kind of support system, I would think. It'd be good to kind of throw this question back to you both from an influence marketing perspective. I'd be really keen to understand what your experience of AI is so far and your thoughts on the topic.
Yeah, no, I think we're very much kind of on a similar thought process as you. I think there's been a lot of talk about, will AI replace creators? But I think, what we're seeing so far is very similar to your experience, that AI is, it's got a really great role in being able to assist human creativity and efficiency and also creative thinking. So therefore, I think, we see AI as definitely more of a co-pilot who can help free yourself of some of the tasks that, get in the way of being creative, really help you simplify the process. But also interesting, AI is actually quite a good ground for creators to test creatives and to generate ideas on the back of trends. But I think, similar to you, I think we're definitely in agreement that it can never replace the human element of connection. Definitely not.
Absolutely. I think we're so aligned there, and I think a lot of brands are. I think their tech has its place, but I think this human approach, especially if brands, with these new channels like social media, it's important to kind of put that human focus. So brilliant. Thank you so much, Catherine and Jojo, for your time and your thoughts today. We've covered some really big topics, I think, with localization, content creation, B Corp, AI, and I think it's clear that we're both kind of aligned in our thoughts in a lot of areas. And yeah, these are the kind of tools you need as brands to help stand out in a crowded and ever-changing marketplace. So I hope this webinar has been useful to kind of provide some food for thought on why you should explore working with content creators on your social media. So I'm going to throw some questions to our audience now. Do we have any questions in the chat for either myself, Catherine, or Jojo? Please do enter those. I can see one in the chat already and one just popped into the Q&A. So I'm going to go to the first question. So we have one from Olivia Stevens. So her question is, what is the turnaround time for finding local partners? How long does building the specialist team to activate in local markets take, and does this vary by market? This is probably I think, popular question for me in terms of finding the right linguist, but do you have anything you'd like to add first of all, Catherine and Jojo?
Just from my perspective, when working with Comtech, it's always been super quick. You probably have kind of standard SLAs, but we find that the kind of we can get the responses back from yourselves like in a very fast turnaround. Obviously, our clients' turnarounds tend to be quite short anyway, so we're always working, trying to be one step ahead, and the speed at which kind of Comtech are able to get back to us is great. But yeah, you probably have your own timelines.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that feedback as well. I'd also say, I think what we do as part of our work is we make sure that the hard work or the setup work is done at the very start. So when we've worked with new clients with Gleam, we've taken the time to really build that team and do all the briefing work before the live project starts. There's nothing worse than kind of a really important, urgent project drops and you don't have the team in place. So what we do is when we first started, Gleam will show us in advance a campaign is coming up, and then we'll work together. If it's for an existing customer of Gleam's, we already have that team set up because we've done the work previously. But if it's a new client coming up, we communicate quite frequently. Catherine will usually give me the heads up if stuff is coming with a new customer, and we'll get things moving in motion. And then putting that time in at the start does mean then it's only a case of a couple of days turnaround really, which I think 2 to 3 days is kind of what we've been focusing on for the vetting reports. Thank you, Olivia, for your question. I hope that helped answer that. We have another one from Angela Gillespie, and it says, how do you manage brand safety checks across languages? Shall I talk about the vetting process on this one?
Yep. So
what we do, I think, with working with Gleam as well, we have a really comprehensive vetting report that we complete, and essentially this is tailored by client. But what we will do is we'll provide you with a list of content creators to go and essentially vet across their social media channels, and we'll work together to put together the right brief. So this might vary from client to client, but we'll be looking at all sorts of things from cultural aspects to commercial aspects to competitors as well. So we have a huge framework that tailors per client. Our linguists will then complete that to the best of their knowledge, and they'll look at their social media profiles. They'll check in the agreed time X amount of posts across all the different channels they work on, and provide a comprehensive report back to Gleam, which they can then review with their customer and then decide the relevant content creator to proceed with. Is there anything you'd like to add, Catherine or Jojo, to that?
I think just to add on, kind of, when we're looking at vetting in general, there are kind of a number of key criteria. It's kind of 2 stages as well. It's kind of a lot about data, so data-driven benchmarks to look at follow account, look at engagement rates. But then, as James kind of alluded to, it's more the subjective criteria that we go through, which is kind of the rigor of, between us, all of our work in terms of, the style of content, the quality of content, does it fit with the brand guidelines and, tone of voice of that creator. So it is an extremely thorough part of kind of what James and his team do, but also what Jojo and I do and the rest of the team in terms of making sure they're going to be a right fit for the campaign. So yeah, it's quite a manual but very long but worth process. So yeah,
I think it's a very holistic process as well, because I think we do work collaboratively in different stages as well. So I think one thing we also do quite well is we translate all of the briefing documentation. So all of the creators have all of the information in their own language, and we usually do that in advance of doing any vetting, so that is all sorted out. And we also, as well, we'll often proofread and check the work of the content creator before it goes live to make sure that either the work they create or their kind of storyboards are in line with the brand brief as well. And so we're able to give those insights to Gleam to kind of then highlight anything they would recommend changing or any red flags. So yeah, I think it's a very holistic but detailed process that we go through. Awesome. do we have any more questions from the audience before we finish up? And thank you both, Angela and Livy, for your questions. They were really great questions.
If there is anything that comes up afterwards, once people have, I know we're sending a recording out, do drop James, Jojo, or myself an email as well, and we're happy to answer your questions.
Absolutely. I think that's all from today. I think we've got no more questions. So I just want to say a massive thank you to Catherine and Jojo for joining us today. If any of our audience have any questions, as Catherine said, around influence marketing content creators, please do reach out to Catherine and Jojo. And likewise, any questions around localization, language and culture, please do reach out to myself. We'll be sending out a recording of the webinar in the next couple of weeks, so please look out for that. Everyone will get a copy. Thank you for signing up, and that'll also be on our website as well, where you can check out a previous webinar around B2C influencer marketing as well. And we'll share our contact details as well, so anything you need, please do get in touch, and we'll be more than happy to help. Thank you everyone for your time today. Really appreciate you joining us, and I hope you have a fantastic day ahead. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.